All right, today we'll be talking about the Arri S. Now, Arriflex is the holy grail of motion picture cameras. It's been so in the past, and it's been so today. If you've ever watched a movie, you have seen a movie that was shot on an Arri camera. Now, I'm not saying all of them are shot on an Arri camera, but a lot of them are shot on Arriflex cameras. Arriflex started building cameras in the 1930s in Germany, just before World War II. And really their major claim of fame is the invention of the spinning mirror shutter. And that is a big deal, even till today. The spinning mirror shutter in here permits the operator to view the image through the taking lens without any actual light loss. So different from a prism that would divert some light into the viewfinder and some light to the film. With a spinning mirror shutter, you can actually have the full amount of light hit the film as well as have the full amount of light hit the viewfinder at the same time. Or actually not at the same time, but one after the other as the mirror rotates. Let me demonstrate this to you. So I'm going to open up the gauge right here. So right here now you're seeing the ground glass, and when I rotate the mirror with what's called the inching knob, then you should see the mirror clear and you will see the gate. And then the mirror swings back in, and this is when the light gets, so right here, when you are seeing the gate, as you're seeing the gate, the film is being exposed, and now the mirror swings in front, and now the light is being diverted through the viewfinder to the viewfinder. You're actually seeing right now in the mirror reflected the ground glass. And as the camera moves on, now we're exposing the next frame of film, and we're closing again and diverting the light to the viewfinder. So, and as the light is being diverted, obviously there is no exposure happening, so that is when the film transport is happening. Okay? So, and this is when you're running 24 frames per second. This is the reason why you end up with 1/48th of a second of an exposure time, because half the time is being used to pull that frame down to the next frame as this is happening. Okay, so this whole thing happens usually 24 frames per second, or whatever it is that whatever the speed is that you set this camera to. I believe this motor here can go up to 50 frames per second with this knob right here. Okay, so let's talk about the lens. So right here is what do we have here? Okay, so right here is a 50mm lens, and this is now no longer a C-mount lens. This is a proprietary mount that Arri has developed, and it's called the Arri S mount. S stands for standard. So this is the Arri standard mount. There's a couple of things that are important to recognize when it comes to these. So first off, there is this slot right here. So there is a key that is in here that will need to fit into that slot. And secondly, also important is the groove that you're seeing all the way here around. So when you are depressing these levers, there are little latches that grab into this groove, and that's what's going to hold that lens in. But it's important to first find the right position for that key, and then let go of those levers so that they grab into here. So you press down on the levers, slide the lens in. You can see that it's not completely in yet, so I'm rotating to find the position of that key. There it is. Now it's all the way in. Now I let go, and always make sure to give this a bit of a wiggle once before you start, working, just to make sure that it is secured. Okay. It has happened that people did not lock it in properly, and then this whole lens goes flying. These lenses, these RES lenses, were not just developed for 16mm. Believe it or not, the same type of lenses were used also for 35mm motion picture cameras, as tiny as they are. The thing though is that not all of them cover 35. The 50, to my knowledge, does actually cover 35. This right here is a 25, which I believe also covers 35. Right here is a 16. I do not think that the 16 covers 35mm. And this here is a 10, which I also don't think covers 35mm. These are all Schneider Kreuznach lenses, which is another German company that is also still around. They're still making movie lenses today. The thing about Schneider Kreuznach is that these are probably the most commonly available S-mount lenses, even nowadays. Some of them are very good, some of them not so good, depends. But since vintage glass is very popular, some of these lenses are certainly doing a good job. There are other lenses available. In S mounts, there are Cooke lenses, there are Bausch and Lomb lenses, there are even some Ingenue lenses. Ingenue built like a couple of lenses in this mount, but at least one of them is to my knowledge, very rare and very expensive. In the front, we have, just like on the Bolex, a turret. So you can very quickly change your lenses. The taking lens is the one that I put on here, up in the front right here. This right here is designed to take a compendium, which is essentially a matte box with a bellows. So this slides into here, and then you can adjust this and bring it up against your lens, like so. And in this particular case, this also has some filter stages in here, which are taking 2x2 filters. So these levers that you have right there make your focusing easier. They are also designed to grab into what is called a blimp on other cameras, both 16 and 35mm. So they will grab into this lever right here, which needs tightening on the screws. And so you can nicely focus your lens right there when it's essentially inside a blimped housing. But the RES does not use any kind of blimp. So back here you have the motor. Now when it comes to the motor, the old power connector used to be here. This has been removed, so this camera has been modified. This is also not an original Arriflex motor. This is an aftermarket motor built by a company called Tobin. The motors can be very easily exchanged. The way to do it is you just flip this lever and just pull it out, and that's your motor right here. So this right here is just this knob that grabs a rubber bushing that's in here, and this is how the motor drives. When you're reseating the motor, spend attention. There's this little key right here that needs to fit into its slot right about there. And then otherwise on here, the adjustments that you have a speed control, which is right here. You have this here is called the inching knob. This is what I was rotating earlier to turn that mirror. You do also have a forward reverse switch, which is probably not the best thing to have on there, because usually you don't really need reverse, and when you accidentally have it switched to reverse, you could be running thinking you're shooting and not shooting. All right. So to reseat it, you just find this little keyhole and then press it in. Again, it's a rubber gasket in there. So you'll feel it go in, and then once it's seated, you just lock it right here in place. The power connector here was modified. So there was a new power connector built onto here. This will accommodate a regular XLR 4-pin cable, which is a commonly standard used cable for camera power. This also means that you can use your regular Anton Bauer gold mount batteries on here. You could also use a V-mount battery on there. These are all 12 volts and will work. Now the camera was originally built not for 12 volts but for 8 volts. However, even the original Arriflex motors will run on a 12 volt battery. So just for demonstration purposes, I got now another model right here. So this right here, the angle is so you can see this better, has an original Arriflex motor. So this right here, this is how this looks. Now this here happens to be a constant speed motor. The constant speed motor, there's no adjustment on here other than, this is your inching knob, which is identical to this right here, this inching knob. But otherwise, you can see right here you have a speed control. If this was a variable speed Arriflex motor, you would rotate this entire cylinder, which looks identical, but this, as I said, this one is constant speed, and otherwise there is no other control, no forward, reverse, nothing. To run the camera, let me put this aside here. All right, so to start this camera, you press down on here. This is run, and then this right here is stop. All right, run, stop. This is what is referred to as an MOS camera, which ultimately means that it is a very, it's just plain and simply a noisy camera. Some cameras, some MOS cameras do run crystal, some do not run crystal. That means they hold a constant speed so that you could sync up audio to it. Where this becomes important is when when you want to ADR, or when you want to shoot something like a music video where you have a singer. And on a music video shoot, it actually does, it does not matter if the camera is running loud or not. What does matter is that the camera is running at a constant speed, so that you can then sync up your actors or your performers playback to the footage. To give you an idea on how this camera sounds, let me put some power to it. And then I have not this one right here as as I said, this one right here is a variable speed motor, which can be adjusted from 0 to 50 frames per second. I believe this is turned down. Let's hope it doesn't run away when I press the button right now. So I'm gonna press the release button. Okay, so it does not, and now I can dial this up, and now you would look right here to adjust the speeds to 24 frames per second. So now I'm gonna have to turn it around to be able to see it. Okay, so this is now running at 24 frames per second, and this is the noise level that this camera is making at a constant 24 frames per second. And then to stop the camera, you just press here and it will stop. So now once you have dialed this motor in, we now know that this is 24 frames per second, so you don't have to start always at 0. Maybe make yourself a little mark right there with a dry erase marker, so you know where 24 is. And now you can just, press start, and it will run at 24 frames per second. All right. So, which brings us to the loading of the RES. I'm gonna unplug it for this purpose. And let me go and grab some film. As you know, the RES loads daylight spools, 100-foot daylight spools. Now, the camera can, you can add a 400-foot magazine onto this camera if you have one, which is looks like this right here. The issue with most of these magazines, they are readily available out there, but the issue with these magazines is that these motors, as I said before, were designed for, or the original Arriflex motors at least, were designed for 8 volts. And this right here is the torque motor, so this is the motor that runs on the magazine. And this here too was designed for 8 volts. So the problem with this is that unless this was modified, it will actually run away from you on a 12-volt battery. So you either need to have this motor modified, or you need a voltage controller in between the battery and the camera where you can down throttle the 12 volt to the 8 volt for this motor. So I will otherwise not talk about this 400-foot magazine simply because chances are you will very likely use this camera with a 100-foot load and not with a 400-foot magazine. Okay, so let's look inside here. So to open it up, this right here, you've got, the letters are an A and a Z. The A is for auf in German, which is open, and the Z or Z is zu, which means closed in German. So here is your door. Here you can see the mechanism for the locking mechanism. So I just show this to you. So this is how this locks. And right here, this pin right here is your trigger. So if I press on the run button, you can see that pin come down. When I press stop, it goes back up. So right there, you can see that. And the place where it presses onto is right down here. Can't really see this from this position, but right on here is where it presses to run the camera. Also, one thing just like with the Bolex, you're gonna have to adjust the diopter. So right here is a locking on the Bolex. If you remember, it was a screw up top. Here it's a locking ring. So this right here is is labeled also in German fix and lose, which is, you know, fixed or loose. And so you're just gonna loosen this, and now it permits you to adjust the diopter to your eye, and then you're just gonna lock this in place once you've found the position. The way to do it, just as I've described before, the easiest way to do it, in my opinion, is to actually either completely defocus the lens or pull the lens from the camera, and then put this back on. Now you aim the camera towards a light source, put your eye on there, and focus this diopter to the grain on the ground glass and or the ground glass markings. Once they are sharp, you set this into the fixed position, you lock it off, and now your eye is focused to the ground glass. All right, so the camera should come with a daylight spool, so you press on here to pull it out. What's gonna happen is we're gonna come from our feed spool, and you always load a camera from feed to take up, never the other way around. We come from our feed spool through this roller right here. In between this roller and this piece right here is called the carriage. It's called carriage because it looks like the railroad, you know, of a railroad car, the carriage the railroad car sits on. So we're gonna run through here, come out to where this white mark is, and this white mark shows us where the loop is supposed to be. So we're gonna form this loop. Then we're gonna come down here and open up our pressure plate, and we're gonna put the film down in here, and once it's locked in there, we're gonna run down and follow that other white mark for the loop, and we're gonna come back up, and now we're gonna run the film in between the carriage and this roller, and then we're gonna come back out to our take up. All right, so always remember, dull side is emulsion, shiny side is base, okay? So I'm gonna first press on this button right here because this is gonna release the carriage. So sometimes you have to push down on it a little bit. So now you can see it released and it's free. So we're gonna first swing it so it is, let me put this with the other hand so you can see it. So we're gonna first swing it so it's clear on this side. And I'm gonna give myself a decent amount of film. And I'm just gonna push this in here. And then once it's in here, I'm gonna push the carriage up to lock it in place, like so. And the next step is we're gonna bring it to our film gate. And for this, we're gonna open up our pressure plate. And now this is a little tricky because different from the Bolex camera, this camera actually has what's called a registration pin. Now, so there are two things right here, and I'll show this to you in a close-up. There is one pin that's called the pull-down claw, and it's kind of like weird because the registration pin looks like a claw and the pull-down claw looks like a pin, but you know, that's how it's named. So the pull-down claw is this pin that grabs into the perforation of your film right here, and it comes out, pulls down, goes back, and goes up. Then comes back out, pulls down, goes back, and goes up. And this is happening, you know, for every frame, for every single perforation that is on here. Okay. When the film is being exposed, though, when it stands still for this, you know, 48th of a second, there is a registration pin holding it in place so it cannot move. And that, as I said, it looks more like a claw. This, essentially the movement is just this, right? So the film pulls down and stop and hold and then release and pull down and stop and hold and so forth. So what we gotta do now is we can see them right here. And it's really important that I now, with my inching knob, I rotate it so that the pull down claw, or I'm sorry, the registration pin is open, okay? So, because otherwise I cannot get my film in there, right? So it needs to be open so it's clear for this film to go in. So I've now inched it so that it swung back, and now I'm gonna put this film right behind it, and there's a groove, and it will very nicely just slide in there. And at the same time, I'm looking where my loop is, and I'm not quite there. So right here, this looks pretty good. And I'll also feel at the same time with my finger here, I can feel the pull down claw. It still sticks a little bit out, and I can feel the perforation go right in. So I'm placing it so that's right in the perf. And we are very close to our loop mark, and I like it there. And then I'm just gonna close this door, and we are almost done. So next we have right down here the mark for our loop. And then note there is this little lever right there, okay? This right here is called the buckle trip. The way this works is that when you lose your loop, it will hit that buckle trip, and when that happens, the camera will stop. So this also will happen when you happen to roll out, which is actually a really good thing, because it will hit the buckle trip before it completely slips out here, which also means that the problem when you roll out in a film camera is that what can happen is that the end could break and could cause a film chip to stay in your camera. So this camera will actually stop or to roll before this can happen. Now, but it also obviously means that it's important that we form this loop right, otherwise it's gonna be too tight and it's gonna touch that buckle trip, and that will stop the camera, and we don't want that. So we're gonna, and it's actually not a big problem if the film does touch the bottom right here, because the way this has been machined, there's actually on both sides a kind of like a piece of metal that the film can ride on, so that the image area is not going to get scratched. So you release the carriage again, swing it now so that this side here is open, and looking at that loop down there, we're gonna put that film in here and find the sprocket in the roller, and right about here we're gonna lock it back in place. And this is it. Now we're gonna look when we're inching if the film is transporting right. And you see that the film is nowhere near hitting that buckle trip as I'm inching it. And there is no resistance, no weird noise. It sounds good. So this is all good. And now to complete this, we are going to put in our spool. Now right there is this little slot right here, and we're just gonna stick that film in and start rolling it out. And then you're going to bring it right here, and when you found the right spot, you can feel it, and then you need to press in the center for that roll to seat itself. Always make sure that it's fully, you know, bound up, and that's it. We are loaded. All right. Now all you do is you put on your door. Again, just like with any other camera, take some camera tape and put this on here. Now I should have mentioned already when I was talking about the Bolex, it used to be that, you know, camera tape was a paper tape and a gaff tape is a cloth tape. It has, you know, since years it's become common to sell essentially gaff tape as camera tape. With a camera like this is not a problem, and with most cameras this is not a problem. You can just use gaff tape to tape the store up. With a camera like the Bolex that has leatherette on here, right? This kind of like leather material. It's not really leather. It's actually some kind of cardboard material. Gaff tape can damage that. So there you gotta watch out. There you wanna use the paper tape. All right, so, and that's it. Now the camera can run. And I mean, I can demonstrate to you quickly how it will actually, because we are almost rolled out, right? We're almost at the end. So if I now put power to this and run it, you will see how the buckle trip is going to almost instantly stop it. There it is, okay? So now it stopped it from rolling out. So right here, we rolled out and it hit the buckle trip and it stopped. So, but instead of like this end flapping through the whole mechanism, it stopped it right there. So you know that you're out, okay? All right, well. The RES is a great little camera to shoot film with. It's really, you know, a fantastic piece of equipment that, if well maintained and well serviced, will you know, shoot a lot of good images for a long time still to come. So enjoy shooting your film, enjoy shooting with the RES, and I'll see you next time.